This is All Things Ansys, a podcast from the technical support staff at PADT. Episode 75, a discussion covering Ansys SPEOS and what is new at 2020 R2 for SPEOS, and then a look at the news and events in the Ansys world. Welcome to episode 75 of our little podcast, and I'm Eric Miller, one of the owners of PADT and your host for these bi-weekly looks into the world of Ansys software. And happy November 1st, only 2 more months left in the year of 2020. Yay! It's hard to believe we've reached another milestone, but this is episode 75, which after a quick Google is our diamond episode. I'll save a deep dive for our 100th, but let's take a high-level look now at where we are. With 74 episodes published before this one went out, we have 23,058 downloads, or 312 persons per episode. So we're pretty steady there at around a little over 300 people per episode. Our first episode, if you haven't been listening the whole time, was actually way back when, on July 31st in 2017. So over 3 years now that we've been doing this. And our top episode is still our interview with John Swanson, the founder of Ansys. And if you haven't listened to that, please do go back in the archives and take a listen. It's fantastically interesting. The free version of Podbean, that's what we use to broadcast our shows out there. It only shows stats back 2 years. So what we know for the past 2 years is that 52.53% of our downloads come from the US. The second country is Germany, and then Canada and the UK are both 4% each. And then the rest, which is pretty much about 40% of it is a little bit less. 33% of it is countries from all over the world, and a really exciting distribution out there. And people listen on a huge range of services. Apple Podcast is the number one at 30.5%, but 45% of you who listen on a other podcast tool. So there's a big variety out there. I hope all of you have enjoyed listening as much as we enjoy making these little audio episodes. And here's to the next 25, onward to 100. So let's get going with today's show. As a preamble, I wanted to talk a little bit about shifting gears to take a look at one of the newer, but not the newest. We'll talk about what the newest one is, addition to the Ansys family. And it's called Ansys SPEOS, and it's for modeling basically the way light behaves. And let's listen. We start off with a little discussion about what it is, and then what's new at 2020 R2. So please take a listen. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us again for another conversation with Rob here. Today, Rob, we're going to talk about SPEOS. Is that right?
That is correct.
So a little bit of a background, and I've confessed on the podcast before, and I'll confess again that, I'm a mechanical engineer who has managed to get his head around fluid flow and electromagnetics well enough to be dangerous. And then Ansys started modeling light. And with the acquisition of the company that includes SPEOS, we really opened up a whole new world of simulating the behavior of that spectrum of electromagnetic radiation, right? Light, both visible and infrared, and as well as visible light. And SPEOS has been coming along for a while, and along with all the other Ansys products, and we'll talk about that. They're now in sync and released their R2, 2020 R2. So we want to. But first, if people didn't listen to the last time we chatted, I'd like you to introduce yourself and then maybe give us a little bit of an overview, very high level, of what you use SPEOS for.
All right, will do. All right, so I'm Rob McCathren. I've been a application engineer with PADT for, I think this month it's 2 years.
I think so.
And prior to that, I used Ansys for the better part of, I had like 12 years or so, doing structural and marine stuff for ship design. So my experience leans heavily towards the structural end as well. But that's about it for me. But head on over to the SPEOS side. So SPEOS is kind of like a light simulation environment. So, whether you're looking at investigating how sensors are interpreting the world around them, or you're looking at a a lighting scheme or interior, exterior, or you're looking at some interfaces, like say new interfaces in automobiles and in planes, or you're looking to simulate the inside of, let's say, inside a cockpit of an airplane, and there are different conditions, whether it's stormy outside, whatever, and based on vision of users, things like that. It's very into simulating optics in general.
Yeah, it seems really powerful, and I like the way you said that it's kind of an environment, because what I get from it, a little bit I've looked at it, is it's really about what does this look like to a human, or what does it look like to a sensor, a CMOS, or I don't think they use CMOS anymore. I'm dating myself, but whatever the silicon is that's measuring the light, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they got a lot of stuff with LiDAR and stuff like that for automated driving sensors, such like that.
Yeah, so it's a lot of new things. When we first started looking at it, I know that it was very popular for modeling the inside of cars. Like what when you turn the light on in your BMW, that's been modeled in SPEOS, right? So you can read. Well, I was going to say you can read the map. Nobody does that anymore, but you can turn it on and read whatever it is you need to read, or find your phone on the floor.
Exactly, and you can see stuff like glares and feedbacks that way from different environments. So it would have caught the lovely glare I had on my center console on my old 2010 Chevy Equinox. It just blared right into my eyeballs during the trip. Would have caught that. So that the automotive industry has been using it heavily for simulating interiors.
And now more and more aircraft interiors as well, where it's really important, right, to have the right lighting in that cockpit or even in the cabin for the passengers to get that. If you've been on a newer airplane, it's kind of fancy how the lighting works now.
Yeah, exactly. So, whether it's looking at like the human machine interface kind of thing, just seeing what the instrumentation looks like under different conditions, or whether it's saying, hey, I've got a heads up display, how does that look right now? And various conditions, and as well as just saying, hey, I'm going to put a bunch of leather chairs in here with this color and that, and dressing it all up so it can do from a fairly kind of like interior decorating way to full on like, I'm going to make I'm going to put this into a fighter jet and see what it looks like. So there's a wide range, anything that's under the purview of optics.
Right. Store displays is a good example, right? When you want to light up something in a store display and see what it looks like. And like everything else with simulation, right? Our whole careers have been moving from building it and testing it to creating a virtual prototype and testing it. And now we can look at how lighting goes. And one area that I know that our customers have been using it besides the LiDAR and other sensors is when you replace a relatively large light bulb with a bunch of smaller LEDs, what does the light pattern look like? What color is it? How warm is it? Do you get spotting, because you've got multiple sources now? And you can model all that with this tool.
Right. So whether you're looking at, I believe the word is, I know it's not colorimetry, but it's, radiometry, intensity, luminance, yes. all that stuff. So all the fun terms I'm having to relearn and remember after years of being out of optics. So
exactly. Right. The college class, I wish I would have paid more attention. So what it is not is a replacement for tools like Zmax, right? Where you're what's the other one called? Is it Code 5? Is the other one? I can't remember. But designing the intricacies and the very precise shape of your lenses and mirrors, you would use those tools to do that, and then take the output from that and put it into this tool to see what it looks like on a bigger scale. And also, really important point, if you've got lenses in terms of not like optical lenses, but like colored lenses that are between the light and what you're shining the light on, it does a really good job of modeling that as well. So tail lights are a great example.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. And then I think the other only feature worth mentioning before we talk about R2 I'd like you to talk a little bit more about are the libraries. That seems to be a really, it seems like two really important features that matter to customers are CAD import and the pre-existing library. Can you talk about both of those?
Yeah, sure. So as far as CAD import goes, SPEOS was originally just kind of a tag-on to CAD programs. So it would just be like an extension that gets placed over it within your CAD program. And I know I'd previously used SPEOS with SolidWorks this way. And now, obviously, it's working inside along with Space Claim. Works with NX and Creo as well, in much the same way. So you're starting up SPEOS, and then if you start up Ansys SPEOS, you get the usual Space Claim interface, along with a couple ribbons that are absolutely SPEOS oriented. And so it's kind of how it stacks in with CAD. And as for the library, I mean, it's got, I believe, right here, 4,000 samples. There's an online resource, but also you can download it through the Ansys customer portal. And that is just all 4,000 different materials with all sorts of optical properties you're looking for, like absorption, is it textures, things like that, because part of it is going to be with the rendering of the materials as well.
Good. And I think that's really important, because what makes this not just the rendering tool in your video game
Yeah, I'm about to say that.
is those materials, right? The very accurate physics-based absorption and reflection and refraction, and if it's passing through, if it's translucent, getting those things right. And if it's not in that library, I think they even have a piece of hardware you can buy that will get those properties for you, if I remember correctly, from back when they acquired them. So it really is a powerful tool. And so, one of the reasons why we want to have it on the podcast is so that a lot of people are designing automotive products, consumer products. Maybe what does the lighting look like on your display panel with your light pipes and your LEDs and things like that, or medical devices. Lighting's very important with medical devices. There's a lot of areas where I know at PADT, we've always just said, okay, well, we'll worry about it when we build the prototype. We'll figure out the lighting then.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that anymore. We can figure out the lighting now, early in the design, using a tool like this, all the way up to I'm designing these complicated sensors for autonomous driving, and I can accurately see what they're going to quote unquote see.
Right, exactly. It measures that there's a level of it included called the human vision perspective, where it's kind of taken in the physiology of the human eye, and according to different conditions with the human eye. So it's like they have a good example where you're driving down a road, and you can view the inside of the vehicle as if somebody is 20 years old and driving it, 40, 60. And so
I was
gets
offended
worse and worse.
I was really offended by that.
Hey, I'm slow 60s. And steady. I'm slowly and steady getting there.
I'm like, wait a second, that's actually right. The other thing I wanted to put in there is how dirty my glasses are. I'm a new wearer of readers, and I have not yet got to the point where I realize that as the day progresses, they get foggier and foggier, and my vision's not going. I just need to clean my glasses. But you'll be able to model that with this tool, which is pretty cool. All right. Well, anything else that's general that people should know before we talk about what's new in R2? I
think that's just I think we hit the major points of it. Yeah, it's about, it does the full range, UV to infrared, like near infrared, and then also there's a far infrared section as well. Cool. That's about it.
Yeah, especially when you're doing sensors, that's very important. So before we get into what's new, I think the key thing to pass on to folks is if you've got questions in your design that involve light, reach out. This may be the right tool for your company, or there's consultants that use this tool to do this kind of simulation if you don't need it all the time. And it's a really powerful capability. And like I said, we're talking to people that felt like they had everything they needed simulation wise, and then we show them SPEOS and they go, "Oh, we need that." So it's been really a good experience as we've gotten more acquainted with it. But let's talk about R2. So I think the thing I want to talk about most, first off, is the fact that it's more integrated with Ansys. Correct? What happened there? I think that's delivered, or I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, that is in there. There's a first off, there's a unified installer now. So instead of it install a lot of different bits and pieces separately, that's all under one pretty much executable, however you want to do it, from the customer portal. Mm-hmm. There's multi-version installation support. The help is now an Ansys help. It's kind of all brought over that way. And the rest of the integration, it opens kind of separately, but it does tie into Workbench through mechanical thermal modeling, stuff like that.
Right, you can do a true multi-physics in that you can have, say, a tail light lens, right, plastic, like red plastic, and when it gets hot, it distorts, that distortion then causes the optics to change, and you can model that. You can go from Ansys thermal to Ansys mechanical back to SPEOS.
Right.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, so that's the integration, and I think it's integrated with help now as well, which is really cool. Then the kind of going backwards here from the way they always list them, productivity enhancements. I'll be honest with you, I don't know enough about SPEOS to know what really matters here. What excited you the most in these enhancements?
Well, I think just first off is the improvement in speeds in terms of large assemblies, because that's always a thing I've had to deal with in a past life, is Ansys and other FEA programs processing large assemblies. And so they've taken all of that time down. And secondly, I think a big thing would be that they've got everything, I guess, like there's an assembly tree now. So you can look at your sensors, simulation sources, that's all compiled in a tree. It's organized. You don't have to do bookkeeping on your end. That's done for you with it. So it's just a lot of quality of life improvements.
You can imagine on a large assembly that would be really frustrating. Okay, anything else on the productivity enhancements, or is that really the big one?
Yeah, there's some additions to the APIs. So if you're into scripting a lot with it, they've made additions there that's more visible now. And we can provide more information on that, or tune into my webinar. Was it next week or so? So
yeah, definitely. We always say that it's better if we piqued your interest, go to the webinar so you can see it. Well, I think the vision is clear with this product that it's important to see as much as you can. The optics are really good. I put all my puns in one statement. So another one that I think is really important is something about the raw signal for optical cameras. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, with that, that's mainly for a camera sensor illumination fall off kind of thing. So it's looking at spectral irradiance, and so with that, it's like the luminance of images it's receiving. So instead of just like a regular picture, it's taking that and post-processing it on that side. So if you're looking at things for like white balance gain, signal perturbation.
So it's kind of like, instead of modeling the eye, they're modeling the chip and then telling you what the chip's going to see. Is that a good way? And then you can put in signal processing in front of it. Is that a good way to think of it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to get my head around these things. I think it's so cool, but yeah, I want to do more. We're trying to get more of these consumer product projects. One of the reasons why I'm excited about a couple of them is that they do have some transparent parts, and letting the customers let us use this tool on them will be a big push. And then I think the last thing that's new I'm gonna have to trust you on this one. Was called variable existence source. Could you explain what that is and why one would care?
So it's looking like it's doing like some ray tracing, and so you're adding more like, I guess it's like luminance maps to like a source input. So you're combining that with ray tracing to do more, pretty much just more lighting, more accuracy. So it's just like an increased level of that, and you can kind of review the action near real time. I mean, there's a lovely little video, little GIF that shows them moving around like a car. I guess it's a brake light or something like that. Yeah, it's on some back end, and it's showing the reflection of the glass because there's some lights that are reflected within, and it's going back and forth through it. And that's as they're twisting and moving it. That's what you're seeing it with.
Yes, you're seeing. Very cool. Very cool. Very valuable for people designing that kind of thing. And I think that's pretty much it for new, right? It was mostly they were just kind of integrating it more into Ansys. I think that was the bulk of this release, right?
Yeah, that seems to be the big focus, is getting, like other products that had kind of been operating outside here and there. They're now being fully brought in, trying to be more into similar UX, UI. So that's kind of across the board. So that's the big push.
Yeah, Ansys is really good about that. When they acquire somebody, they don't ignore them, and at the same time, they don't shove them into the product family. They kind of let products find their way when it's the right time. And I know that we really appreciate it as people who have to support what's being done. Yeah. It's nice to make that. And I don't know if you saw, but I'll talk about it in the news section, that Ansys acquired another company. And I look forward to their integration as well. It's models the behavior of objects in orbit. So.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally other end of the spectrum. And at that note, I will leave it. And I want to thank you for your time. And like you mentioned, you're going to be doing a webinar next week, and I'll have information on that in the notes as well as in my discussion after this. But I, as always, really appreciate your time and helping explain to me these products I'm not as familiar with. And appreciate your patience.
All right. Well, thanks, Eric. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, have a good rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. You too. Have a good one.
As you can tell, this is a very powerful tool that more and more companies are finding a need for. Do check it out and attend our webinar on November 4th. You can attend live or view the recording. As always, you can find these webinars at www.padtinc.com/events or go to brighttalk.com and search for PADT SPEOS, that's SPEOS, and it should show up. For our commercial this week, I want to talk about training through PADT. There are a lot of options out there for learning Ansys, and one of those options are training classes through PADT. We can work with you to develop the right course material for your team and deliver it to you remotely or, after COVID-19, in person. And we offer more than a custom curriculum. We use our expert support engineers to teach the classes, so you will be interacting with someone that can answer your questions and translate what is in the class to real-world applications. And that interaction during the class is why companies continue to come to PADT for their Ansys training. To learn more, visit www.padtinc.com/training or email joe.woodward at padtinc.com. Joe is our lead engineer for training and can answer all your questions. News-wise, well, we only have one piece of news, and it's pretty big. Ansys has made another large acquisition. This was a $700 million purchase of a company called Analytical Graphics, Inc., better known as AGI. AGI is described in the press release as, quote, a premier provider of mission-driven simulation, modeling, testing, and analysis software for aerospace, defense, communications, and intelligence applications, end quote. My limited exposure to them, it's a tool for modeling basically how satellites behave in orbit. So you model the whole mission while it's up there. A visit to their website, agi.com, shows that beyond things in orbit, they do aircraft and missile systems. They also do hypersonics, radar, infrared, and other kinds of simulation, which overlap a bit with Ansys. And it'll be interesting to see what we add from them and what we replace from the Ansys suite. So mission simulation simulation is kind of a step above and beyond. It's system level simulation, but instead of looking at a given event or a series of events, you look at the entire behavior of the system through its entire mission. So your virtual model is run for a very long period of time. It's pretty cool. And as you can imagine, if you're doing satellites and missiles and things like that, it's very important. So AGI is a 30-year-old program. And like Ansys, it's based in Pennsylvania. However, they're on the other side of the state. They're a suburb of Philadelphia and not a suburb of Pittsburgh like Ansys is, but still very close. And what this allows is for users to model their aerospace systems all the way from the chip, using maybe the Apache products, to the entire mission. So if you're doing say a small sat of some kind, a little microsatellite, you can use Ansys for the entire thing, including your cameras, your radar, your communication, your thermal, your stress, your vibe, everything down to the chip level and all the way to having it spin around the Earth 100 million times. So pretty cool stuff. I first became aware of them when Ansys partnered with them to allow you to couple Ansys tools to their software. So you could use Ansys to do co-simulation. And I guess that's been taken a step further. As you can imagine, more and more satellites are being put up, and you can see how a tool like this will be used by a growing number of people to manage more on-orbit based platforms. And as we learn more, I think other systems beyond just satellites. This is why Ansys paid $700 million for the company. The deal was 67%. Of course, this is all according to the press release. 67% is cash and 33% is Ansys stock. And Ansys will take on debt financing to pay for this, so they're still going to keep cash reserves just in case, who knows. And the press release estimates that this will add around 75 to 85 million in additional revenue in 2021. So we can assume that AGI sales were in the 75 to 85 million dollar range. So we've got a little bit over 9+ times multiple on annual revenue for the purchase price. So we have a lot more to learn, how this is going to play, how it's going to impact other things, what hidden gems are in the AGI suite. So we're very excited about learning more and finding out how we can use that with our customers that do these kind of simulations. So let's go ahead and move on to the Ansys stock. The Q3 earnings call is scheduled for November 5th, so this coming week that the podcast comes out. And as usual, the stock goes down a little bit before that. Usually the stock goes down when it's an acquisition. And then on top of all that, the S&P 500 has gone down. So the stock has fallen quite a bit, actually, from 357, which was the peak a couple weeks ago, to 304.37 this week. So that's Friday. Let's see, today is November 1st. So that would have been the 30th. Friday, October 30th is when it was 304.37. So, that's to be expected. Just as comparison, the S&P 500 is now pretty flat for the year. It's at 1.21% up since the beginning of the year, and Ansys is up 18.24%, so outperforming the S&P. But as we all know, maybe you're listening to this after Tuesday, election day, but so next week, or this coming week, we've got the election, and it looks like COVID-19 cases will peak this week, if not the following week. Hopefully they're done peaking. And various states are going to respond to this new peaking of COVID in different ways with economic issues. And then Ansys will also, in this week, release their Q3 numbers. So all of these things will probably impact the share price, and I have no idea. Usually I have no idea. Now I really have no idea how that's going to impact everything. So they'll be releasing their info, the election, COVID. Wow, we'll see what happens. In 2 weeks, we'll talk about it. News-wise, there's the only thing really worth mentioning is the acquisition of AGI. And let's go ahead and move on to events. So PADT has quite a few events going on this month. Many are Ansys related, some are community related. The first, actually we have 4 events on the 4th. I'll do the first 2, which are Ansys related. The webinar on the SPEOS 2020 R2 is going to be on the 4th from 11 to noon. These are all Phoenix times, which is no longer the same as Pacific. We're now back on Mountain Standard Time. And that is at 11. And then at 1 o'clock, Ansys is actually hosting a webinar called Accelerate Productivity and Innovation with Ansys Fluent. So if you want to learn more about some of the new stuff and some of the cool stuff that Fluent does, that is at 1 o'clock Eastern time, which is going to be 10 our time, I think. 10, 11, 12. No, that would be 11 o'clock Phoenix time, because we're 2 hours now. So do check that out. And then we have 2 other events that day. In the morning, we'll be taking part in the New Mexico Experience IT Conference, Experience IT Conference, which is their annual Tech Council event in New Mexico. And they're splitting it up into 2 days as a virtual conference this year instead of a one-day thing. And that's going to be from 9 to 1. So if you are in New Mexico, I highly recommend that you attend that event. The next day on the 5th is going to be day 2, which is in the afternoon, I believe. That's also in the morning. So day 1 and starts at 9, and day 2 starts at 9 on the 5th. And big event here in Phoenix for the Arizona Technology Council is our annual Governor's Celebration of Innovation Awards, which will also, of course, be virtual. We'll be PADT is a sponsor of that. I'll be speaking. We hand out PADT sponsors the awards, which are handed out, and that's from 4 to 7:30. So if you're involved in the Arizona tech community at all, I highly recommend you attend that event, and that is online. And then that's all on the 4th. On the 5th, we've got, like I said, the second day of the New Mexico Experience IT Conference. And then I'll be hosting our 8th edition of the Arizona Tech Business Networking event, which is where we invite people in the Arizona technology community. You don't have to be a member of any group or anything. You just have to be interested in technology business in the state of Arizona. And that's from 5 to 6:30 on the 5th as well. And then the following week, we've got another webinar put on by Ansys called Accelerate Productivity and Innovation with Ansys Mechanical. So like the Fluent event on the 4th, the event on the 11th is going to be on Mechanical. And then we will also be sponsoring and speaking at the 8th Annual Aerospace, Aviation, Defense, and Manufacturing Conference, which is an Arizona Technology Council event. And that is on the 12th from 1 to I think 4:30 in the afternoon. That's Phoenix time again. So if you're part of the Arizona Aerospace, Aviation, Defense, and Manufacturing world, we highly recommend you attend that event. We're going to be hosting a great talk about using additive manufacturing for 3D printing, as well as some other interesting topics. A good friend of mine is going to be the keynote speaker talking about batteries and how batteries are impacting how they're manufactured and how they're kind of changing the world. So that's going to be also during part of that event. So do check that out if you're part of the Arizona tech community. And that is it for events. And it's gone a bit long with all the news and everything. So I'm talking about episodes 75. So I'll skip blog posts and just wrap things up. And I want to thank everybody for listening once again. Don't forget to subscribe to www.padtinc.com/opt-in to get our newsletter and spread the word. Let other people know about this podcast, and please have them and yourself subscribe to get it every other week. Don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you very much for listening. Thank you for joining us for the All Things Ansys podcast, episode 75. As a reminder, this podcast is not affiliated in any way with Ansys Inc., and the opinions expressed are those of the people on the show only and not of their current or former employers. For more information, visit www.padtinc.com/blog, and please share your thoughts and questions through an email to podcast@padtinc.com. See you next time.